Hello again, Fish a Lot. So if you want to catch tons of fish from the bank, especially if you're a beginner out there, you need to stop paying attention to all this noise and all this overcomplicated stuff and just follow these 5 things that I've perfected in over 30 years of fishing. 8 of those years were spent professionally fishing, where to fish every single day in order to make money. So in this video, we're going to be covering all the essential gear that you need, essential lures that you need, overlooked baits that go widely undiscussed out there, as well as other essential tools. And at the end of the video, I'm going to reveal the most important aspect of bank fishing that you absolutely cannot miss. So let's get into it. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And first and foremost, when we're talking about gear, we have to start with your fishing rod. So your rod length is going to be very important. With bank fishing, you actually want shorter rods. So your rod length is going to be very important. You're going to be fishing under trees. You're going to be fishing with brush all around you. There could be overgrown plants. You could be crawling into areas that are pretty tight quarters to fish. And if you have a really long rod, you're going to make a cast, crash your rod up into a tree, crash it up against the side of the bank, whatever the case might be. It's going to be an incredibly frustrating day out on the water. So what I recommend is any rods 7 feet and below. Okay, so this rod right here is 6'6". This ultralight rod right here, which I'm going to get into in a little bit, is also 6'6". Next up is type of rod. I have 2 recommendations for any bank angler out there. And I'll start with the first one, which is ultralight rods. This guy right here. Now, ultralight rods are exactly that. They are just very, very light fishing rods. And the reason why you have these is because you want to present very light and very small lures to your fish. And again, ultralight is just the power rating. So this rod does not take a lot of force to bend. And that's what a power rating means. So this is ultralight. And I love it because that light bend in the rod gives you a lot of bite indication. It allows you to feel the weight of some finicky fish, and it allows you to throw some very light lures to those fish, which just trigger a ton of bites. And that's really what we're looking for when we're fishing from the bank, is where fish are. The next rod up here that I really recommend is medium power, moderate action. The power rating of the rod, you're gonna have to give a little bit more force to get it to bend. Not much though, okay? It's still medium power. And then the action rating is where on the rod the bend occurs. So for moderate action rod, that rod bends all the way to the middle of the rod, and that is what you want. I use this exact setup if I'm catching largemouth bass. I'm using a setup like this if I'm catching crappie or bluegill. Medium power, moderate action can handle it all, and it's the most versatile combo of a fishing rod. You can fish with lures with that, like you see right here, and you can also fish bait. And again, these are going to be great for beginners, your kids, or a little more experienced fish lots out there as well. Moderate action, medium power will literally catch you everything. And all right, so now that we covered the rods, we got to cover our reels. And what I really recommend here is avoiding bait casting reels and just going with spinning reels. And something I forgot in the previous section, of course, though I'm only recommending spinning reels, I'm only recommending spinning rods as well. So if you're a beginner out there, just make sure you're matching a spinning reel with a spinning rod. What I recommend is 3,000 size spinning reel for your moderate action and medium power rods. What I do recommend is buy the rod first, and then your reel can be matched to your rod. And the way you do that is you can just see if your rod and reel combo is balanced. What you do is just hold the rod and reel naturally, like you would when you're fishing, and then take your finger that's furthest up the rod and just hold it there. And if the rod is straight with the reel on it, that's a perfectly balanced rod and reel combo, and you're good to go. Now for types of reels, there's a million different types, there's a million different brands. My recommendation is not to drive yourself crazy. All you do when you get a reel is just see how smooth it is, right? Turn the handle. If it's smooth, it's good. Test the drag system. If the drag is smooth, you're good. Now, this is an ultralight reel right here. These will go on your ultralight rods. Okay, this is an Okuma Ceymar C10, very light, very awesome reel. You'll see me using this on a lot of my videos on my channel. This is a Cast King 1000. Again, a very good ultralight fishing reel. Does not break the bank. This is a Sharky 3 from Cast King. Another tip out there is don't go with high gear ratio reels. Keep it sensible, keep it slow. Slowing down can trigger you so many more bites, and if you do need to fish a little faster, just turn the reel handle faster. One of my favorite reels, really, that I've been using quite a lot here are these ones right here. These are Piscifun reels. This is a Carbon X2. Absolutely fantastic reel. I actually have a promo code right here if you want to save 15% on your reel. This thing is just so light, and I really use these Piscifun reels for everything, and I think this one comes in at 50 bucks. Now, I hope all this information is really beneficial to you and helping you build your confidence for your next bank fishing trip. And if you literally want me in your pocket every time you go fishing, I've literally published the most comprehensive fishing book out there. It's like your field manual for everything you need to know about fishing, and I'm super proud of it. Inside, you'll find everything you need to know, covered with illustrations like how to tie your knots, how to read the weather, how to read topographical maps in order to find your fish using contour changes, what baits to use and when, and especially what to avoid at all costs. I'll drop a link in the description below. I know you're going to enjoy it. And all right, so now that we covered the rods and the reels, let's cover the line and your lures. What I recommend for ultralight is literally 2-pound test line to 6-pound test line. You can see in these videos right here, these bass, these big bass, are caught with 2-pound test line. If you're a little bit apprehensive about that, you don't want to lose a big fish, you can go up to 6-pound test line. But for your ultralight fishing, to trigger maximum amounts of bites and learn the most about your fish and how to trigger bites, I would go 2 to 6-pound test line. Now, for your medium power, moderate action rods, guys like this, I would not recommend anything over 10-pound test line. Let's talk about the different types of lines. This is braid. Braid has 0 stretch, and it's very thin in diameter, which means that you're going to be able to cast a really long way with your lures or your bait presentations. However, it's not abrasion resistant at all. So if you are fishing in heavy cover, the fact that the type of line, the braid, is not abrasion resistant, that is going to cause you some problems. So if you are using braid and you do want to get that further cast, what I recommend is this right here. Use braid as your main line and tie it to a mono or fluoro main leader. Now, monofilament will stretch a little bit. It is very abrasion resistant. I personally like that stretch, especially if you're a beginner. Again, that stretch is going to allow you some shock absorption, so you're not going to pull as many hooks. Fluorocarbon is also very abrasion resistant. It has a little bit less stretch. It does stretch, but it is a little bit more expensive as well. So for a beginner, or if you're just starting out bank fishing, honestly, tying some braid to a mono leader is going to serve you perfectly fine, and you don't even have to worry about a lot of these overcomplications out there. In terms of tying your line together, what I would recommend is mastering the uni knot. It's called the universal knot because you could use it for anything. I'll leave a video down below in the description of the universal knot and how that could be used in all your inshore applications of fishing. So next, let's move on to the lures here. And let's just start what's already rigged up on my fishing reel right now, and that's just soft plastics. So this is a weedless presentation of a soft plastic. It's an owner twist lock hook on a Fluke right here. This is just a standard Zoom Fluke ice color, I believe. And this is great because it actually is a pretty heavy lure that you could cast very far. And soft plastics is one of the key search baits that I would really recommend. Now, what a search bait means is that you can cover a lot of water and trigger a lot of bites. And that really is what I recommend, is a variety of different search baits, from your Flukes to your kind of pre-rigged Storms right here. This is just a Storm paddle tail. And of course, these are Flukes, just like I was talking about before. And this is a Fluke with a jig head right here. It's just a great search bait that allows beginners to figure out where that strike zone is of a fish, where that fish is willing to hit your lure. And of course, you could cover a lot of distance and a lot of water with these lures that will really help teach you where those fish are and how those fish are responding to different environments. And another shout out here is something like this. This is just a fin spin right here. So it's just a jig head with a soft plastic. This is an ultralight presentation with a little spinner bait underneath to give it a little bit extra vibration and flash to get those fish to bite. Now for ultralight, since I mentioned it, what I really recommend is jig head sizes 1/64 ounces to 1/16 of an ounce, like this guy right here. That is your ultralight range. Other great search baits are these guys, spinner baits, of course, and chatterbaits right here. These are great search lures. Again, this chatterbait right here is the ZMAN MiniMax. I use this lure 9 times out of 10 when I'm fishing with chatterbaits. Same thing with my spinnerbaits. Small spinnerbaits will catch both small fish and really big fish. Now, something else fishing from the bank that absolutely is a must is these guys right here, spoons. So a spoon, especially with some light line, you could cast this thing a mile. And look, this is just your typical Johnson Silver minnow right here. And again, just been around forever. You can just catch so many fish with it. Another lure that'll really come in handy from the bank are these guys. These are your crankbaits. Again, this is a Squarebill crankbait. This large square bill will actually deflect a lot under cover, and you'd be amazed actually at how well something like this can come through some pretty thick cover. A great combo right here for your ultralight fishing, to be honest, is just a Crappie magnet bundle. It's ultralight, comes with some jig heads, comes with a peg float. So you get a package just like this, super easy. You have everything you need just in something like this. All right, let's talk about bait. Just get baits that stay on the hook. That's the biggest tip at all if you're learning how to bank fish. Fish bites is one of the greatest lures for this because it just does not come off the hook. Another advantage is you don't have to deal with live bait. Again, if you're uncertain with that, if you're freaked out with worms, you don't want to chop them all up, you know, it's just easier for a beginner to fish with something like fish bites, something that stays on the hook. Okay, use very small hooks and just use some oily baits that will have a lot of attractant to it. Fish bites is a great option, but things like chopping up hot dogs into small pieces and using it is great. I don't recommend any chicken products out there. Chicken is pretty poor because a lot of people use raw chicken, gets on their hands, they touch their face, their mouth, they eat a sandwich, get themselves sick. There's better options out there other than chicken that catch you a lot of fish. Okay, now let's talk about your gear. For bait fishing, same thing as everything else. Just go small. Use smaller hooks. I would say 5/0 hooks and below. For carp fishing, I'm using number 6 and number 8 hooks. For your bluegill fishing, crappie fishing, bass fishing, I would keep it in the numbers. Okay, it has a number symbol and then the number itself. Okay, that's going to be your biggest, is going to start at 1. Your smallest is going to be your higher numbers. And then of course your 1/0 hook is going to be smaller, and your 10/0 hook is going to be your biggest hook. Okay, now, if you are fishing for bigger fish, something like a bigger catfish, that's when I would go to about a 5/0 hook with a bigger piece of bait on there. Fish bites will still work, but just using a bigger circle hook will avoid catching smaller fish. And all right, so let's talk about essential tools that you're also going to need when you're going fishing. So first thing I would recommend is something like these. These are braid cutting scissors. They're great for mono or fluoro as well, but really good at cutting braid. The thing I also like about this is it's got a little nub right here, and that's great for your split rings or for your rings on your hooks. Next up is just a pair of pliers. Okay, the longer the plier, the better it is. You can get down to a fish if it's hooked a little bit deeper in its mouth, or if you catch a fish with some teeth, maybe a snakehead by accident, you could always use these pliers and get down and unhook your hooks safely. And last, I guess, for essential tools is something to grip a fish with. Now, I don't recommend using these all the time because people tend to injure fish, but if you're new to fishing and you really don't know what you're dealing with and you're kind of uncertain on how to handle fish, you don't want to get injured by the fish, you know, you use these things. You grab the fish by the jaw, you can hold it up, you control the head of the fish, which is key for not getting hooks in your hands or getting bit by the fish. It's just a really great way and a safe way for beginners to handle fish. Now, in terms of storing your tackle, there's a ton of options out there. There's large tackle trays like this, there's small tackle trays like that. I keep all my lures and baits and worms in tackle trays, but it varies size to size. So for my worms, something like this is just a deep tackle tray, as you can see right here, where I could store a lot of soft plastics and worms. And then for my hooks and terminal tackle, I use a different tackle box for that segregated. Now, one of the essential things that you're really gonna need when you go fishing is just rain gear. So you can catch some really nice fish when the barometer drops and some weather comes in. I don't recommend fishing in like lightning storms, but in the rain, you could really catch a lot of fish, and it puts off a lot of other fish lots. So the rain may actually be a really good opportunity for you to have your local body of water all to yourself. Now, the most important thing about bank fishing that cannot be overstated is the 90-10 rule. This states that 90% of your active feed feeding fish are only going to be in about 10% of your water. That means most of the water that you can fish in any body of water is going to be a dead zone where no matter what kind of gear you have, no matter what kind of lure you're throwing, you are not going to catch a fish. Unless you could take your lure or your bait and present it in front of a fish, you cannot catch fish. So the 90-10 rule is the most important thing to keep in mind when you go fishing. And what determines this is some core rules of thumb. A, the fish's comfort zone. Where are they looking to be? Protection from predators. Now, the third principle is having easy access to food. Last but not least, how water movement affects both comfort, protection from predators, and easy access to food. And a lot of those search baits that I talked about earlier will help you do this. Their comfort zone depends on water depth or water temperatures or whatever the case might be. So the search baits that I talked about are going to be super important, but applying that 90-10 rule will help you focus your efforts and not be fishing in dead zones, getting frustrated. So finding the fish is going to be your most important thing with any fishing trip that you can possibly have. Now, if you want to know exactly how this works in a real life fishing application, go ahead and click on this video right here, where I actually show you how using the 90-10 rule and how figuring out the fish movements can really result in a ton of fish being caught. So thanks for tuning in, Fish-A-Lots. I'll see you out there on the water.